Excited to have Chip Malt on the program, founder and CEO of Made in Cookware. Chip, I ran into a couple years ago and have always been impressed with what you're doing. Made in Cookware, for those not aware, check out the site if you're an aspiring chef, or maybe you get a little bit more context to your common customer, but premium cookware, really high quality stuff. And as you can see in their overall experience, that permeates through everything you do. So thanks for coming on, Chip.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I mean, so one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is, one, it seems like your overall SEO strategy is doing quite well. You've got a nice content approach as well. And it's interesting to see how it's evolved from the first time we talked and where you are now. It seems like it's progressing in the correct way. And it seems like, as someone who cares about quality and the fine details, we were talking before, you're like, this and this is off, I want to fix that, but still very good above market, I would say. So like starting there about where you are as a premium cookware, and you can refine that as well, but like, how did you settle on what your content strategy is? And and I think that's a good starting point.
Yeah, it's actually interesting because our content strategy goes back before launch. And the reason why we love this category in general. I came from the apparel space, athletic apparel specifically, a company called Roan. And the strategy there was much more around the fashion of the product, right? You see it on Instagram, a blue shirt that catches your eye. You don't need to research that much about it. You're not Googling it. It's just, do I think I'll look good in this shirt? Purchase or not purchase, right? Yeah. And the thing that we loved about cookware was it was such a low education category. People didn't understand what makes a pan good or what makes a pan bad. They don't understand what size pan do I need for X, Y, or Z. They're scared of toxins or no toxins. There's all this other stuff that requires some sort of research phase ahead of the purchase pattern, right? Okay. And so, we always say like low categories with low education are huge opportunities because you can be the one to provide that education and then therefore build loyalty and long-term customer support. So when we had the idea, and I started the company with my co-founder, Jay Kalick, whose family comes from 3 generations of kitchen supply background. His family started a kitchen supply store in 1929, so almost 100 years of kind of expertise and authenticity and stuff you probably talk a lot about in the SEO world, right? It's
like that's a lot of expertise, experience of the...
Totally.
Yeah.
And like value-added content that just comes from his domain, right? And, we knew, so we started kind of concepting the idea probably around April or May of 2016 and launched in September of 2017. So almost a year ahead of brand building, finding manufacturers, developing the product, like all this other stuff. We had the domain and we started building content right away. Knowing that SEO is long tail, it takes a while. It takes a while to get domain authority, et cetera. And so each week we would publish some sort of content piece. That way, by the time we launched, we had a series of, we had some domain authority, but we started to build kind of that wave ahead of waiting till launch and then having that tail come way after. So this has been a portion of our strategy from, like T-minus 12 months kind of thing. It's not just a launch afterwards, which I think is unique for a lot of brands. And then too, like that's been a theory and conviction of ours since launch. So doubling down as our team size grew. Our third or fourth hire was in the content first realm, video photographer to really support blog and content initiatives, which I think for most companies is probably early to have a content producer that early. We had a freelance network of 4 or 5 people always writing from us since launch. And then that's transitioned to both kind of a hybrid approach over the years. But now we have a content team and an in-house studio for video mainly. But that's probably a 15-person team as well. So really it's been like
a 15-person content team now.
Yeah. Wow. And that's everything from the people who actually develop the recipes, do recipe testing, the actual kind of the talent, quote unquote, as well as the people who film, edit, and write and things like that.
How do you, recipes seem like and maybe this is just part of, there's just certain things that you need to have a sense for, but I would guess the recipes would be the furthest from transactions, almost like a brand building. How do you quantify the value of the worth of doing those assets?
Yeah. There's a kind of a theory in more of the tech land or SaaS land of time to first usage. And with a satisfaction of the product. And we've kind of ripped that in our world as well, where our return rates and our product quality is so good. We get about 2% returns, which is phenomenally low for a DTC or direct brand. And part of that we kind of attribute to the fact that they get the pan, and for every single one of our products, we have custom developed recipes right off the back that start you off on the right foot and get you excited about the product. So I think there's two aspects of it. One is before the acquisition funnel, recipes probably aren't that great. We've seen them for traffic, we've seen them for whatever, but they're low conversion. But then just for the LTV, for the customer satisfaction, for providing use for our product and just value add to the customer, that's where we see
it's more of a retention play.
Yeah.
One thing I'm interested in there. So when you ship the product, is there like a link? Go to the website, check out this recipe that supports it, or you have like a recipe card with the product?
Exactly. I think a cool end-to-end product experience that we offer. Nancy Silverton, who is an LA-based chef, one of the most famous chefs in LA. She's known as like the bread queen. Been around for 3 or 4 decades. Just like has this LA fan base, right? Mm-hmm. We were out there filming a TV commercial with her. She's a really good friend of the brand. She's bought from a lot of her restaurants out in LA. She developed a product from scratch for us. She's like, this does not exist on the market. Nice. From the industrial design to product testing to everything, all went through her hands. And then she developed a custom recipe for that custom product. And in that box came that full experience, right? So
nice.
From end of product design to end of actual customers cooking on that product, it was a real Nancy Silverton experience.
Do you include that in, I don't know if it's compelling at all in the description for the product, or just kind of like, probably no pun intended, like salt on top? Or
it's totally, the whole like email marketing, the blog content, that's where the whole kind of content package came with that. It was interview with her about her background, behind the design, then recipe. So everything on a content-based approach. So
it's so interesting that you sort of knew from day one that part of the gap was that research and education did not exist. Was that like your background, or are you the business guy and he's the product guy, co-founder?
Co-founder runs all the product. I run all the performance marketing and marketing to start. We have someone who runs brand strategy and kind of global marketing campaigns now. But, back then it was just 2 of us. And I was handling performance marketing, data analytics, all the e-com and web behavior, both on CRO and SEO. Mm-hmm. And really anything like on that front.
Makes sense. So one of the questions I was going to ask you, very interesting strategy. It sounds like you knew SEO was going to be a thing from the start. So you invested it literally pre-launch.
Yeah.
One of the interesting conversations I don't even know if we had this conversation originally, is like the time to value is elongated for a newer business because of that long cycle. Like when did you start feeling traction from search post-launch with that unique model of like literally have content live on the site when we go live?
Pretty early. I think part of being a digitally native company in a incumbent space with a lot of people who are catching up to moving to e-commerce, there wasn't much competition in a lot of the keywords. And a lot of these research-based things are longer tail. So it's easier to rank to start. This versus that. What size fry pan do I need? Like things that, you're not going for frying pan right off the bat, as you know. So we started to rank for some of those tail keywords pretty quickly. Pretty decent volume for the keyword difficulty to start, and it kind of snowballed. But we were ranking for kind of core keywords, saucepan, for instance. We were ranking, top 3 in 18 months, 12 months. Way quicker than I would have thought.
How about the content tail? What was that?
6 months. Yeah, 6 months.
6 months from launch.
Some of them were in the top 3 to 5 at launch, which was awesome.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did you do like a press push? I'm guessing your original funding round, things like that.
Yeah, we did. It wasn't a huge press push at launch. It wasn't a real backlink strategy that drove that. It was definitely just like on-page content and lack of competition.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. And I am seeing that more and more. It's an interesting use case, and maybe it's just case by case. Like an affiliate site comes to us, and they're like, we want to rank in 12 months. It's like probably going to take you 12 months, but if you actually have a good product behind it and a story, I do see increasingly, like when there's real brand activity around it, like it seems like it can happen in 6 months sometimes. But you got to feel confident in that first part.
Totally.
For that to be the case. So, I mean, you iterated on that first version of the site over time, and now I think we'll link to it in the show notes. Really suggest, hopefully, if you're listening to it, you would check out the site, buy some product, and check out that new design. But I think your content experience specifically, we're a content firm, is really good on the content section. It's premium. It kind of reflects your brand. You've really made a novel, iterative step. It wasn't just that. It sounds like, and I'll let you talk through it, but you redesigned your site as well. But for an interesting conversation we tend to have is just obviously that step of really improving your content section. It's not always straightforward. So I think people would be interested, like, what is the rough cost of that? What was the project look like? And some of the change and improvement you saw from the first version to today.
Totally. So we used to use out-of-the-box templates for our blog. We were on Shopify to start, kind of early days, and we're using some of their template, blog-based templates. And I think anyone who's used Shopify knows their out-of-the-box blog is an afterthought for them. Content is an afterthought. It's a shopping website. They've made some improvements on kind of the global template-based experiences they offer, but still probably less flexibility than you'd want if you were really driving a content first strategy. And so for years 1 through 3 or 0 through 3, we were hindered by, a 12 column system on our website that didn't allow for a right rail, that didn't allow a brand hit, like all these things that we really wanted for someone who was entering through the door of /blog. And we felt like we were just missing out on email capture, telling people about the brand. Influencers or bloggers do this really well, right? On a right rail, you come through a recipe like you asked about, and there's a little about me section that just follows you down the right side of the page. So at least you get some sort of association or brand hit if they don't continue exploring through their website. Those were all the things we really wanted, and kind of depending on the blog type. So if it's a recipe, we want you to sign up for an email to get more recipes from us and stay part of our community. If it's a behind the design blog post, we want to filter you through to the actual product that you're reading about at that time, a more shoppable experience. And we just lacked all that flexibility. No ability to put product cards embedded on the blog page, similar to how affiliates do really well. And so we moved to a headless system probably July of last year, July of 2022. And that provided us a lot of front-end flexibility for the blog specifically. The front-end structure project took about 3 months. Ripping out Shopify and replacing it with a full front end.
So is that just the whole thing with Shopify? Your whole site's Shopify, or just your content experience now?
Our whole website is now headless.
Oh, okay.
Except for the back end. So once you click through to checkout, they still run the checkout experience, but everything from our product pages to our homepage to our blog to our whatever on the kind of main domain is all headless, run by us.
Okay.
And that's the trend right now. Obviously, page speed helps there. Shopify is pretty slow. A lot of the SEO is a portion of that decision-making process, which you guys probably see a lot. But then flexibility and the ability to control our own destiny and not have to work around Shopify's limitations was the other main reason. And we built flexibility for the blog into that project. So just the blog got inherently better and more usable for us just because we're moving to a more flexible system.
One of the things I want to explore further on is that right rail idea. That's interesting. It sounds like, were you one column before?
Yeah.
And it makes complete sense. One of the things we often recommend is like top nav follows you. It's kind of like you have a call to action. Every business is a little different. That maybe it makes the most sense for SaaS versus e-commerce kind of thing. It makes complete sense what you're saying there. Yeah, it's interesting to hear like if there was that kind of a qualitative feeling? Did you think about testing that at all versus like a middle column thing?
Yeah, we actually used Unbounce to test
really?
blog pages because we love a content-based funnel approach. We think it's a really nice way to introduce yourself to a brand, not buy, but like, let me help you first in your process before considering us to purchase from us, right? And so, again, heavily researched area, heavily kind of confusing area, 3-ply, 5-ply, 7-ply. What the hell is the difference between what is ply?
I don't know what that
Exactly. And so if we're the ones that, we have
that question,
answer that question, then hopefully you view us as a value to you as a customer. We're able to spin that up a lot quicker and unbounce first. We built fake landing page or fake blog pages around specific high volume keywords and drove to that landing page and tested things like right rail versus one column versus a content funnel type thing before making the request to the dev team. Because, I think every company, especially our size in the world, has a dev list that's 14 years long and the ability to work on a sprint by sprint basis. And so we didn't want to make that ask to the dev team until we felt confident it was going to improve the metrics we cared about. To your point on kind of the top nav following you versus kind of other best practices in our space, most bloggers and recipe developers use a right rail methodology. And so we felt that was going to be familiar. It was going to be something that people are used to, et cetera. So there was some kind of like art and science to it as well.
I mean, it's relatively unique to get the resources, and it's clear that how integrated content is into everything you do. To hear about even content A/B testing. Are there any other interesting A/B tests you did there?
Yeah, we've done a ton. Removing nav versus keeping nav. So having like the actual global navigation appear on the blog versus a special nav that's different than the global nav.
I'm really interested in that one.
The global nav tended to work worse.
Really?
For purchase behavior. But some element of a nav performed better than no nav and only CTAs on the site, if that makes sense. So instead of just having like, here's our blog, logo at the top and then having the direction of where to go next throughout the page, having some sort of nav and footer perform better, but not necessarily the one that's the exact same as the global navigation.
I'm guessing those were engagement metrics mostly tested on that, or what was sales?
Purchase. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So it was a conversion-based test.
Interesting. I think before everyone runs out and implements that, you do have a lot of great calls to action throughout your content section. People should check that out, that you incorporate it very well in a well-done fashion with your products.
That was in addition to, not in replace of.
Those
CTAs.
Yeah,
correct.
That makes sense. So one of our recommendations is often like to inherit the global navigation partially for shopping experience, that it makes it easier theoretically to go shop. And then secondarily, there is a long tail effect of like, if you get links to these content pieces, that should help those pages rank better.
Yep.
So I wonder, what is your current nav experience?
It's global nav for that reason, because that's SEO optimized for us. This was more for content-based funnels driving just purchase behavior, but there's a ton of trade-offs in your final design, which is, was that worth it? Do we want people exploring and knowing we make 10 different items? So when they think about wine glasses down the road, they remember, the exploring they did before. So it was a good example of, I think, the team having a conviction that overruled a very small A/B test win that also helped SEO. And
makes sense. I like that thinking for sure. I think I probably interrupted you because I was so excited about. Are there any other A/B tests? Because that's so interesting to me.
We've done a ton of stuff around CTAs in the hero versus not in the hero. None of those mattered really. I think so. Basically, above the fold thing that everyone talks about, right? It's like, is there a CTA? I mean, the nav was up there, but is there an actual hard-coded CTA in the hero image? Didn't matter for us. Multiple CTAs versus the content funnels around blocks into a final singular CTA. Multiple CTAs won in that aspect pretty heavily. And those are the ones I remember most. But we were always testing stuff.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I mean, I really like those kind of shopping widgets that you have specific to each product on. I mean, I'm guessing you thought about that in the first design, but like, how hard is that kind of thing to spin up and get going?
Shopify made it difficult. Embedding the ability to do shoppable widgets on the page was a frustrating experience, especially if it was multiple products. You wanted to create a carousel. So think about recipe, right? Things to use in this recipe and be able to shop from the blog. Shopify made that a pain in the ass. And so they weren't light lifts.
And you don't sound like a fan of Shopify to me.
I don't know.
Pros and cons. I'm sure.
Pros and cons.
Yeah. It's clear like part of your success is the integration of everything. And I think that's probably like so many brands kind of they arrive at content in like year 4 or something.
Yeah.
And then they come talk about it. But it's obvious that, are there any other kind of unique, novel ways you use the blog in connection to product that might not be for people that are just like publishing stuff on the blog and hoping it gets traffic? Like, how are you, or any other kind of way?
Yeah. So I think what's special about our brand is just the in-depth and storytelling that goes into the actual product. And so, our knives are made by 5th generation knife makers who are hand grinding these things in central France. Our bakeware is still hand glazed and hand painted. And a lot of the people who have been working at the factory are like, 60-year-olds who have been working there for 50 or 40 years, right? And like since they were 20, and also in France. So these real deep, rich stories of the tradition of why that product is made there and how it's made, as well as stories behind the actual people there. And so when we introduce a product, the blog is also a portion of behind the design, telling those stories, showcasing the videos that go along with that. So we go into these factories and embed videos around just like, the idyllic, slow, slow-mo.
Chef's table stuff.
Exactly. And I think that's important, right? Like people want to have a connection to the products they buy, they want to know it's going to last them a lifetime. They want to know it's quality, especially if they're finding out about it online, which, as people have different connotations with things online, right?
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And so it's just important for us just as a brand as well to have that showcased in a fashion. And, then that's probably worse for SEO. It's like not many people are Googling French made hand blown this or that. But in the content funnel,
subconsciously they want it.
Exactly. Or retargeting or email blasts or anything. Or as we're introducing a product to our CRM, like we're driving people to hopefully use our blog as a resource for the research process and get that ingrained in their behavior.
Makes sense. It will eventually make the final purchase much easier.
Exactly.
Do you have a natural kind of content distribution through email marketing as well?
Yeah, we send a lot of emails and SMSs. Our internal mantra is it has to be helpful to send it. And so we even in conversion focused emails, product launch, et cetera, there's always content in the bottom half of it. So if you're not interested in the product right there, it's, we're releasing 12-minute, 13-minute YouTube videos around recipes with chefs every week. We built, as I mentioned, that studio in-house where chefs are coming through on a almost every other day basis to film these awesome recipes, dishes that made their career. If you're in Austin, the Suerte, Birdies, like a lot of the best restaurants in the country have
videos.
I've done videos to teach you how to make some of their highlight products or recipes. And so, that will be in the footer as well. So, hopefully you're finding value in what we're sending you and it's worth the open.
Do you do a direct promotion of content only email?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially for engagement.
What does that look like? Have you done any kind of testing or anything around how that has been working?
Yeah, mostly kind of like content roundups. So at the end of the month or end of 2 weeks, kind of here's the best things that came out of our camp. Consumers are busy. This content, you work on it. You sweat, blood, and tears internal to make this video, and you send an email, and not many people engage with it, and they would engage with it. Like they would really love to find out about that video. And so I think you have to hit people a couple more times to get the full value out of creation of content.
Have you seen anything like 3 links in there, or you lead with a certain subject line, or just anything like that? There's nothing there.
Yeah, we've tested a lot on where should content go in placement of an email, for instance. Content in generally has the highest engagement rate. So even if, no matter where the block is, that's kind of our first insight. So it doesn't matter if it's hero or second or at the bottom, people are engaging with the content. Yeah. And we love that, right? Like we're spending a lot of money and time and effort. It's a huge part of our brand to provide that resource for our customers. So it would be a shame if it was not that case. And it's a great way to get people in the door about learning about new products or why things are useful or new techniques on how to make your food better and make you better as a home cook.
Okay.
So you think, in these videos and in these blog articles, these chefs are so willing to teach you how to adapt that to a home setting to up level your game as a home cook, these tips and tricks and kind of like party tricks. And so it's really cool to see home customers clicking through on those and learning from our chef customers.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like just yet another area content is touching everything you're doing, which is great.
Yeah.
You have a great overall, I mean, you touched on it. I mean, that's video for sure. Photography also is probably a side product of that.
Yep.
Throughout your blog is great. I'm assuming most all of it is original photography.
Yep.
In-house
photographer.
Yep. Yeah. So how do you think about that? Or are they specifically, do you go out and use like types of saucepans and you're like tying to the article? Like how does photography support the content section? Or like, how are you allocating against that and thinking about that?
I'd say two aspects. One of which is, picture says 1,000 words kind of thing. Like, I'd assume most people are skimmers. I am myself. And so providing a correct context without having to rely, Unsplash or something like that, right? Like you're kind of putting it in there for maybe a SERP feature or God knows what, right? But it's not really providing that context. You see it on news sites a lot where they'll embed a video onto their page, most likely to probably just get a SERP feature hit there or benefit there. But video has no idea, no context to what's happening on the article. And it's a super confusing state.
Not valuable.
Exactly. Or it's, you think it's going to be, it's in line midway through the page and then it's something completely different and you're just confused at what's going on in that page and kind of diminishes the brand or the news outlet in that eye, right? That's probably where I see it the most. So we want to avoid that. We want to make sure everything's contextually relevant to both imagery and text and video to what's in the article. And then it's so useful everywhere, right? It's good on paid ads. It's good on email headers. It's good. We give it to the chefs. It's a resource for our chef community as well because, we have in-house photography and the head chef of X restaurant downtown needs new headshots for, their LinkedIn or for their next speaking engagement.
Nice.
So
that's smart.
We provide that for them.
Yeah, it's like
exactly.
Or it could be like Instagram content for them.
Yep.
And your product's featured in that. It's not a bad thing.
So we try to use our internal resources as much to aid the community, the chef community for anything that they don't have.
Random question. Curious how you're thinking. I mean, it's clearly a high quality approach, not to what you do. Have you thought about AI's place in all this stuff? How are you thinking about it?
Yeah, it was interesting with the Google release 2 weeks ago or something like that. Actually not condemning AI based writing as much as I would have thought. But I think there's been more clarity in SEO based content than there ever has been from Google's side, which over the last 2 years, right? And I don't know if you agree or disagree, know more about it than I do, but it seems like with their focus on reviews, on expert opinions, on everything else, they're just going for, is this useful for the customer? Focus on bounce rate, people going back to the search page after clicking on your content. Like there's nothing else to optimize for other than creating high quality content that is useful to the consumer. And whether or not you want to use new technology or not to get that is kind of up to you and your ability to do so. Yeah. But I think it goes with like, if you're an asshole during the process, you're going to get the result you want, right? Like if you think you can just,
that's a good tagline for
right? Like, but if you can use it in a way that makes the process quicker with humans checking it and whatever, then you can probably innovate really nicely there. So I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, it's got to be something that when someone clicks on, they don't go back to the search page and, who cares how it comes about. We're not using it much in our content, our blog-based content or SEO-based content,
right?
Because we rely on experts in the industry, the chefs, people we feel like will really create deep, engaging content that customers will love.
Yeah, I mean, generally with you, I'm currently of the mind, at least the current state it's in, it's like maybe it has some value for like programmatic, really long tail type content, but for a premium brand like you, can't imagine it would be that helpful short to midterm.
Totally. Where we're using it, where it is helpful is the stuff we don't believe humans should be doing. SEM, AdWords, 15 different variations of an SEM tagline for a product, right?
Like, the humans
are creative by nature And that's where they should be spending their time in our eyes. They should be thinking up new concepts. They should be developing strategies. They should be interacting and conversing with chefs and developing relationships and interviewing them and like stuff that AI can't do.
Right.
And so we love the technology to take off the plate of copywriters, Facebook headlines that no one even reads anymore because most people are looking at reels and Instagram stories.
Yeah.
They don't even have headlines, right? Like
Right.
take that off the copywriters' plates, give them free time to go make relationships with the best chefs in town, and interview them and make a bond and tell our customers something special about what's cool about that chef.
Makes sense. Like that. And I agree with it for sure. One of the things I was thinking about as you're talking about just very high quality content generally, and apologies if this has already happened and I didn't see it, but have you thought about any kind of like hero assets such as, I mean, I could see you guys somehow being integrated in a Netflix show or maybe you have a book already and I'm not aware of it. If so, plug it right now.
I wish. We've explored the idea of a cookbook. Same concept with SEO as a cookbook, right? It's what's our angle? Why do we deserve to exist? We have so many amazing chefs as part of our community who will develop amazing recipes for our customers, but what can we do with a book that they couldn't do themselves or whatever? Like, what's our perspective and unique take on that?
Okay.
I don't think we've landed on what that is yet, but it's of super big interest. We've been approached by some of the major content players, the streaming services that you're talking about for same thing, like how do we leverage all the amazing chefs and our story within that? We're trying to build a business that some of that stuff's distracting. And
I can see that.
It's more about what to say no to and the focus on just building the business.
Makes sense. So you said 15 content team members. One of the things I'm always interested in is what team structure looks like and how you came to that kind of breakdown of like 4 writers. Maybe you have a manager here for content, and you'd mentioned a photographer that's full time. Could you go into a little more detail on that and how you came to the numbers?
Yeah. Trial and tribulation. I would love to say we nailed it out of the bat. I think what was interesting about the org structure in general was bringing together a lot of content creators who are experts in their field, but have never worked for a brand before. And so a recipe tester who's just like an amazing, just recipe developer, expert in the food industry, been doing it for 25 years, like kind of that aspect. Then having her sit next to a writer who has written for, Food and Wine magazine, but, has never worked for a brand before, next to a, photographer who has amazing photography, but never worked specifically for a brand before. And then getting them all on the same team to play for a common vision that the vision was evolving as well as we went. So we knew we wanted a content-based approach. We didn't nail it out of the gate. We learned a lot and kind of getting both a team feeling amongst that team, but also that changing on them every 3 months.
Yeah.
So we definitely didn't nail it out of the gate. The team's working amazing and better than they ever have before. Probably took about 12 months to get there. Not by their fault, but on our fault of kind of constant iteration and
that makes sense.
Changing the goalposts on them every 5 minutes. But if you look at our stuff now coming out, the quality of it is unbelievable. It's all original content. It's plugging the product in a organic and authentic way, not a commercial and cheesy way.
Yeah.
How does it fit into the recipe to make the recipe better? So, things like that just took 3 to 4 months of refinement. Probably 3 times that. And yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then the split just on a monthly basis of content calendar, how much is meant for SEO specific, how much is meant for, we don't care what happens to SEO, this is great for the brand, how much of this is around the product and support and CX and emails and kind of supporting the business and other aspects, and how much are those kind of content strategies changing and what's the steady state of those over time. And that evolves too, right? Because we feel like we're behind in SEO in this section. So month 0 through 3, SEO should take a larger portion of the content calendar. And then months 6 through 9, we can turn down SEO and turn up brand. And or in Q4, when it's a commercial time period, we're turning down brand and turning up commercial. Just honing in on all those moving parts has been has been tough and a learning experience.
Yeah. Nice. From that, another thought that comes top of mind is just, how do you think about KPIs or OKRs for these teams within such a quality focused firm? I imagine there's a tough interplay there.
I mean, my background's in like computer science, data analytics.
Mm-hmm.
I'm that person who wants to put a
publishing goal or something.
Yeah, a goal on everything. Yeah. Our head of marketing, she comes from some really amazing brands, LVMH, Nike, Burberry, some like really high quality brands, and is super creative of a person. And she's kind of been my counterpart in, you can't put a KPI in everything. You got to let the creatives be creative. You got to, like doing it the way you do will both either make them quit and hit you, or not get the actual result you want from a quality perspective. So you need to be comfortable with some ambiguity around KPI based stuff. I would say the loose model was built on a CPM based approach. And so, basically it's the cost per 10,000 views, 10,000 watches, 10,000 or 1,000, sorry. Whatever the metric is for that. Is it a video? Is it a blog? Is it a Instagram reel? Does it fall within some range that we feel comfortable with on a CPM basis? And after that, let them be free, let them be creative.
So you measure the cost of the asset against the sort of CPM roughly.
Totally. So if your Instagram reels get 40,000 views on average, and it's costing you $8,000 to make, $200 CPM or whatever it ends up being. And, does that feel good to you?
Yeah, that makes sense. And you're feeling good on the brand side of those. I imagine that's a tough kind of connection, or you have to be comfortable probably with somewhat high CPMs on that.
Yeah. And I think that's worth it.
That makes sense.
If the content is good, would we spend $200 CPM, which, we can buy a Facebook ad for $25 CPM. So would we spend 10X the CPM to have that hit? Only if the content is worth it. And so if you're having poor content coming out and paying 10X CPM, that's a real tough proposition for you to justify. But I think if you go to our Instagram, @madein, you'll see, see the reels and stuff are coming out. They're like absolutely phenomenal quality. They're coming out, 3 to 5 times a week. They're constant repetition. They're giving you recipes to save, download, share. Like there's a lot of great things that are coming out of that team.
Nice. Well, this has been great, Chip. Don't want to put you on the spot, but one of the thoughts I was thinking was like, first, how big of a cook are you now?
Huge.
Yeah, I guess.
And I think that's interesting. My co-founder, he came from the space. He's an incredible cook. He's the guy that will open up the refrigerator, no recipe, just see it and then create it kind of thing. And I was the opposite. I had to go through the journey of specific step-by-step recipe to create a mediocre dish.
That's me.
Exactly. But then over time, like now I'm that person who opens up a fridge of my friend group and, grabs 15 things and creates a pretty good meal. So I kind of feel like, I guess the content journey that we hope our customer goes on is what I went through. And so I think it's a nice kind of barometer or North Star there. Yeah.
So that means you do have the expertise then to answer potentially my next question is, do you have like 1 or 2 cooking tips for the beginner mediocre dish person?
Totally. We learned it from Tom Click. So I think the cool part about our business is we're in the kitchen with the best chefs in the country. I mean, 3 Michelin star chefs that have worked all over the world in some of the best kitchens. And one eye-opening fact was that for the same process, searing a steak, 2 of the chefs, like they don't follow the same theory. They both have different theories. Tom Colicchio, head judge of Top Chef.
Okay.
You'd notice him. He's an awesome guy, investor in us. He is a low and slow guy. He will put a steak on a burner and put it on low and let it sit there for 15 minutes to get the perfect sear. And, I think that, we walk into that room and we're like, I thought you had to blast the heat and crush a steak to get a sear. And he's like, no, actually it's not the case. And especially for a home cook, this allows home cooks are always behind, the burner's going, they haven't cut things, the baby's screaming, all that stuff, right? Low and slow is actually better for the home cook because it allows them more time to get the other stuff in order. Whereas you go into the Alinea kitchen, it was number 7 in the world at one time. Grant Achatz, kind of like mastermind chef, legend, amazing chef's table. And he's a high heat, blast it, quick, move on kind of guy. And so like same result, Both tasted amazing, completely different methodologies. So I think the first answer to that is it's technique, but it's what technique fits you and how you like it. And there's no, I'm doing this wrong. I don't know how to cook. Like, you hear that a lot in the kitchen space. It's actually, no, it's a million ways to skin a cat kind of thing.
Nice.
And then I think technique and heating control is by far the thing we've learned the most. Like any issue you're having in the kitchen, your pans are burnt, chicken is sticking to my stainless steel cookware is a heating issue. Most people will overheat their pan and then take something out of the fridge and throw it directly on the pan without letting it come to room temperature. And you have a super hot pan mixed with a super cold thing right out of the fridge, and you've created kind of a catastrophe there, right? It's all about heating control. You can do 40-minute steaks on a stovetop just using high heat to start and then turning it down to a simmer and leaving it. It's just all about heat control at the end of the day. And we have a ton of content around that on our site.
Okay. What should people Google to support that?
I'd go to either our blog or YouTube and do how to cook with stainless steel.
Okay.
And he walks you through how to get the pan the correct temperature. So, I mean, the TLDR of it is put your pan, if you have a high quality pan, put it on the burner on low to medium and let it come to temperature for about 2 minutes.
Okay.
The pan gets hot, 300 to 400 degrees. And then you put the oil in. The oil doesn't break down. If you put the oil in too early, the oil breaks down.
Okay.
It makes your pan a mess. If you put the oil in too late, it doesn't kind of heat up correctly. And then you put your protein in, your steak, chicken, and that's where you get that nice sear. So
nice. Yeah, I have that exact problem probably.
Totally. And it's like, it takes you watching a video or reading a blog article once, and that single thing will make your steaks, chickens, anything, vegetables, all taste better.
Unique tips. I thought you were going to say put more salt on something. Or
salt along the way.
Yeah.
Season it.
I'm sure that's not a bad thing, but that's probably what everyone says. Those are good tips. Well, awesome, Chip. Yeah, everyone go check out the blog, subscribe to the email newsletter, and buy some knives. You got some great products.
Awesome.
I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.